Hello and welcome to another episode. In today's episode, I am going to be talking about CSS fonts. But before we get started, if you are new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. As well, if you find this video useful for you or for somebody else that you may know, then don't forget to share it with them. Hopefully, you're going to be helping somebody else. And if you like my video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Also, for those of you asking how you can support my channel, I am going to leave my PayPal link in the description below. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so to get started with CSS fonts, I want you to go to the same website we've been using so far. It's w3schools.com. You're going to go to CSS and you're going to scroll down all the way to CSS fonts. And we're going to be working as well with the same website we've been working so far. So I'm going to open my code and I am going to clean everything that we did in our last chapter. Let's do that first. I'm going to save this and let's hit refresh. Okay, now I am also going to remove this image because we are not going to use that image in this tutorial. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, I think that'll be enough. I'm going to leave the link that we created. So let's save that and let's refresh. Boom, there we go. So now we have our website clean so we can start learning CSS fonts. Okay, so CSS fonts, it's a property, okay? And they're very important because we're going to use different type of fonts to style properly our website, especially if you are, working for somebody else and they want a really good site or a really pretty site, then you're not going to use the generic fonts that are going to come with HTML. Obviously, you're going to customize them using CSS fonts. So first thing I want to talk about in CSS fonts is about font family. So in CSS and in regards to fonts, there are some generic font families that you should be aware of. So there are 5 generic families here. We have serifs, we have sans serif, we have monospace, cursive, and fantasy. Those are the 5 font families that you should be aware of. Now, there are a couple of differences between one and the other, but the main reason that you need to know which are the 5 main families is because if your website doesn't read properly the first font that you use, then you're going to go back to your family and you're going to use fallback fonts. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Anyways, moving on. The 5 type of families, here are some examples, and you can go ahead and actually see them here. So when it comes to serif, one good example will be Times New Roman. That's a font name of this family. In sans serif, we have Arial. In monospace, you can see this one right here, Courier New. Then on cursive, you can see Lucida handwriting. And in fantasy, a good example will be Copperplate. So how we can add fonts into our CSS code? Very simple. We use the font family property. This is going to specify the font of the text. Okay, so and let's read here a little bit. The font family property should hold several font names and fallback systems, which is what I was talking about previously, to ensure the maximum compatibility between browsers and operating systems. Okay, so what happens is that sometimes, let's say that you select Times New Roman, right? And you are using Google Chrome. But then you go into a different computer or somebody else's computer and they are using Internet Explorer, right? And then let's say that when you open your website, that browser specifically doesn't have Times New Roman. So what you're going to do is it's specified in your code that there's a fallback font that you can use, like an example, Georgia, in case Times New Roman is not available. So if Times New Roman is not available, then browser, go ahead and use Georgia. If Georgia is not available, then browser, go ahead and use Garamond. So on and so forth. I guess that so far it's so clear, but if you have questions, leave them in the comment section below and I will reply as soon as I can. That's the first thing that I wanted to talk about, the font family property and the type of fonts that you can select. So let's go ahead and let's apply some fonts into our first paragraphs, just so you can go ahead and actually see some examples here. So going back to our code, we have the class of blue for our first paragraph. So let's go ahead and give it some style here. Let's lowercase everything here. Okay, so we're going to say to blue, we want to use the font family of, and as you can see here, Visual Studio Code gives you some examples. Like if you select Courier New, then it gives you some font family that you can use. So I'm going to select the first one, okay? And we're going to hit save. Now I'm going to go, oh, and I'm going to also hit save here just in case, okay? And I'm going to go back to our page, and we applied that font to our first paragraph. So let's refresh now. And boom, you see how the font has changed? Now our website is displaying this font right here. Okay, now if this font was not available, then we have our fallback fonts, which will be Courier and then Monospace. Okay, so that's it for this example. You can go ahead and actually give it a try on your own and check out more fonts like this one's right here. Moving on, let's go back to our second topic today, which is web save fonts. So what are the web save fonts? In fact, we cannot say that there's really some safe fonts that you can use for all browsers, because you know how technology is. We always face different type of updates every now and then, and right now they might be supportive by some type of browser, but then I don't know, maybe they create a different browser in the future and those fonts are not going to be available in that browser. So that's the main reason that we use fallback fonts, okay? Because you want to make sure that if one font is not available, then you jump into the other one. Anyways, there are some kind of web save fonts that you can use for HTML and CSS, and these are the most common ones. So if you want to play it safe, you can go ahead and actually use Arial, Verdana, Helvetica, any of the ones that you see here. And this typically will be available in any browser. Again, if there are some updates in the future, you might not know if this will work well. So that's why it's so important that you go ahead and actually select a group or you have a font family to fall back on. Okay, and here you also have some examples of what or how each font is going to look like. Okay, and I'm not going to play with every single one of them because I want you to go ahead and experiment those by your own. So let's move on to the next topic, which is font fallbacks. So far, I've been talking a lot about font fallbacks, so I'm pretty sure that you have quite an idea at this point in what a fallback is. So here are the 5 font families, right? And here are some examples of the fallbacks that you can use. So if the font family is, let's say you pick Time New Roman, then you can use Times and you can use Serif. If you select Georgia, then you can go ahead and select Serif. Then if you select Garamond, then you can select Serif. And this is for serif fonts. These are some examples that you can use for this specific font family. Now, if you go ahead and you select sans serif fonts, here you have some examples in what can be the fallback fonts. Here you have some monospace fonts, some cursive fonts, and some fantasy fonts. You can also Google a little bit more because there are more fonts that you can use other than the ones that you'll see at W3 schools. So I'll leave you that as a homework. Okay, let's go to our next topic and let's talk a little bit about font style. So the font style property is mostly used to specify italic text. So there are 3 values here. You have the normal text, which is going to show the normal text as a default. Then you have italic, which is the text is going to show in italics. And you have oblique, which is like a leaning type of text. But this is not used quite often, so I'll just say go with the first 2. So let's go ahead and apply some style into our code so you can see some examples. Okay, moving back to our code, here let's actually use the second paragraph. So we're going to call paragraph number 2 right now. Okay, let's open this up and let's select the font style property. Okay, so font style, and there we go. So what I'm going to do is set it up as italic so you can see the difference. I'm going to hit save right now. Going back to our code, we're going to see the change displayed in our second paragraph. So let's go ahead and hit refresh. And boom, you see how it's leaning a little bit? It's italic now. So that's an example in how you can use the font style property. Go ahead and rehearse a little bit more on your own. Okay, let's move on with this font style. Another thing that you can style in your fonts is the weight. Okay, this is specified the weight of a font. You can set it up as normal, you can set it up as bold, and in fact, you can even give it pixels. So let's go ahead and let's use the font weight property so you can see some examples. So let's go ahead and give you an example of font weight. We're going to call font weight, and let's call it bold. I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to hit now refresh. And boom, you see now the font is bold. So go ahead and play around with the font weight, and you're going to be able to see more examples. In fact, if we hit here, try it yourself at W3 Schools, you will see the type of fonts: normal, lighter, bold. You can even select some numbers, as you can see here. So go ahead and just give it a try, play around with it, and I'm pretty sure you're going to learn a little bit more. Under the font styles, you also have a property called font variant. This property specifies whether or not a text should be displayed in small caps font. Now, we saw previously under the CSS text topic how you can capitalize your entire text. But here is a little bit different. Like this property is it gives you some options, and one of the values that you can give is small caps. So what this is going to do is that it's going to turn all the letters in your paragraph in capital letters, right? But to each word, the first capital letter is going to be bigger than the rest. So let me show you that example right now. Let's go ahead and let's call paragraph number 3. So paragraph number 3, and we're going to call font variant. And right now we're going to say small caps. Okay, this is just one of the values. You can go ahead and actually try the other ones. I'm going to hit save now. And now the third paragraph is going to change. Let's hit refresh. Boom, you see? So everything is in capital, but as you can see, the first letter of each word after any type of punctuation is going to be the biggest letter. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, leave your questions in the comment section below. Okay, so let's move on to our next topic, which is going to be font size. So under font size, this is a property that sets the size of your text. Pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it's going to make your text go bigger or smaller. So you're going to be able to go ahead and play around with this. You do not use the font size adjustment to make paragraphs look like headings, or headings look like paragraph. That's why each tag has its own function. Like you don't want an H1 to be looking like a paragraph and a paragraph looking like an H1. You know, because obviously you want to say, hey, this is a heading and this is the paragraph, right? That's what is going to make the difference. So we do not recommend that. Anyways, to go ahead and show you some examples of this, it's very important that you know the values of the font size. So the font size can be absolute, right? Which is it's going to specify the text size. It doesn't allow you to change the text size in all browsers, so it's bad for accessibility reasons, as it says here. It is useful when the physical size of the output is known, so pay close attention to that. And then relative size, which is the second property you can use here, it sets the size relative to the surrounding elements. So it's going to take into consideration what elements you have in your website, and it's going to adjust the fonts to that. So you can go ahead and use pixels with the font size, by the way. And you can use some other measurements like EMs. 1 EM, it's equal to 16 pixels, by the way. So if you go ahead and you want to know what's the default font size, it's 16 pixels, which is equal to 1 EM. Another value you can use here will be percentage. And you can go ahead and actually give it a try here. So let me go ahead and show you an example. I'm going to use paragraph number 4 for this, or let's just use paragraph number 3. I'm just going to call font size, and let's give it some pixels. Let's say I set this up to 16. Well, actually, no, let's make it bigger. I'm going to set it up to 40 pixels so you can see a difference. I'm going to hit save. Going back to our code, this is going to change. It's going to be bigger. So let's hit refresh. And boom, the third paragraph, I'm sorry, it was this one. So see, now it's 30 pixels. So this is how you are going to see and are going to size your font. If we go ahead and we use another value like relative, we can do that, and you're going to see what's going to happen. Let's change it to relative. I'm going to hit save, and let's hit refresh. See, it's going to make it go back to relative the other elements around it. So go ahead and play around with this. And if you have questions, again, leave them in the comment section below. Moving on, let's go ahead and talk about Google Fonts. What are Google Fonts? As I said before, on fonts, you are able to select not only the default fonts that the code gives you, but you can also go ahead and you can select some fonts from other web pages. Great example is Google Fonts. So let's go ahead and open the browser, and I'm going to go to Google. I'm going just to type in Google Fonts here, okay? And I'm going to select the first link, which is fonts.google.com, by the way. And in here, you have some examples of some letters or some fonts that you can select. So let's say that you're creating your website and the letter that you're looking for, it's not under the defaults that you will find in your code, right? So what you want to do is select something out there in the internet. So let's say that I want to use this one right here. I'm going to click on it on Google Fonts, right? And I can change the size of it. Let's say I wanted this side 46 pixels, right? And what I have to do is very simple. But before I show you that, let's go back to our CSS tutorial in W3 Schools. So to use this, you have to use the link that is going to say style sheet, and then you have to specify the Google fonts. Okay, so let's do that first in our font, so you can see it in our HTML file. So I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code. Let's go back to index, and in here we're going to use a link, and then we're going to call here style sheet, and then we're going to give it an href. And in this case, it's going to be Google Fonts. But we're going to go back to our code here. Okay, and I'm going to hit here where it says select this style. And I'm going to dismiss here, this thing. Okay, so now what I am going to do, and by the way, here it gives me the entire link. Like I don't have to type in this that I just typed in here. I'm going to delete this, by the way, because here it's giving me already that first thing that I wrote in here. So all you have to do is go ahead and select everything here. Okay, you're going to select everything, copy this, and paste it. See how it gives me everything that I needed? It's giving me a link to pre-connect fontsgstatic.com, and then in here you have your fonts.google APIs, blah blah blah, and then the style sheet. So I'm going to hit save there. Now we're going to go back to our style, and I'm going to call paragraph number 4, okay, because I want to use this style right here. Okay, so to use this style, we already copied the link, and now the only thing that I have to do is copy this thing right here. I'm going to copy the font family, and I'm going to paste it there. You see? Simple as that. So I'm going to hit save. And now going back to our browser, the paragraph number 4, which is this one right here, it should change to this type of letter. So let's go ahead and hit refresh. Boom. You see? You see how it changed? It has changed here. And you can go ahead and adjust the size, as you know, using the font size property. So let's use font size, and let's say that I wanted 40 pixels big. Hit refresh, and it's bigger now. So that's how you can use Google to add fonts into your website. So let's move on to the next topic, which is font pairing. So in font pairing, if you want to mix one font with another one, make sure to follow these grand rules. Number one, you need to make sure that they complement. Number two, you need to make sure that you are using the font super families that we've been talking about. Number three, you need to make sure they contrast with each other. So if you're going to be using some variations, make sure that you use this as an example. Serif and sans serif. Okay. Another thing is that you have to choose only one boss. If you are going to select a font, make sure you have a boss, okay? An example, you select Times New Roman, then Times New Roman is the boss, and then the other fallbacks are just fallbacks as it is. Here are some examples. If you want to go ahead and try it out, this one itself, I am not going to test it in the code. I want you to go into w3schools.com and hit here where it says try it yourself. Now in here, we can see a beautiful example in how the entire body of this website, it used a font family of Verdana, which is from sans serif. And the H1, it uses a different font, which is Georgia with serif. Okay, this is just one of the example of a beautiful font pairing. Now, other examples that you can see here below will be from Helvetica and Garamond. You see some other popular Google fonts pairing. As you can see, Merriweather and Open Sans. So just go ahead and read a little bit more here. I'm pretty sure you're going to find something really interesting to use in your code. Okay, and the last topic I want to cover here when it comes to CSS fonts will be the font shorthand. Every single property has a shorthand, okay? So here is how this one works for the font property. So this is the shorthand code. So let's see. The font property is a shorthand property for font style, variant, weight, size, or line height, and family. If you want to, let's say, specify the family, the variant, the weight, and everything, and you want to just type everything in one single line of code, you can certainly do it, but just using the font property. So let's go ahead and give it a test in our code. Opening back our code, we're going to be working with paragraph number 5, okay? So let's call paragraph number 5. And we are only going to use the shorthand property, which is font. So in font, here we go. We have several font properties in one declaration. So here we have italic. What is italic? I hope you remember that's in the font style, right? Then we have small caps, which is also a font variant. Then we have bold, which is the weight. Then we have 12 pixels / 30 pixels, which is the size and the line weight. Then we have Georgia serif, which is specifying the font family. That's how you will shorthand write your code. Now let's go ahead and give it a try to paragraph number 5. Let's say we wanted italic. We wanted small caps also, just so you can see the difference. Then we also wanted bold. We're just going to copy the same example. Here we're going to change the pixels, okay? So here, let's say I wanted 40 pixels. And then the line, this right here, because this is the size, and then here is the line height. So the line height is going to be, I don't know, let's say it's going to be 60 pixels. And then one last thing will be the family, Georgia serif. We're going to also use Georgia serif just because. Okay, serif will be the fallback. And we're going to close this. We're going to hit save. And going back to our code, now we are going to see how this paragraph will change. Hit refresh. Boom, there we go. You see now how this has changed? We can restructure the size. We can say, I just want it to be 10 pixels. Let's hit save now and let's hit refresh. So now it's only 10 pixels, but you see this space between this line and this line right here? That's the line space, which is 60 pixels. Okay, so we can also reduce that to 10 pixels as well. Let's hit save and let's hit refresh. And boom, you see, now it's close to one to the other one. Okay, so I guess that's it when it comes to this topic for CSS fonts. Okay, so that's it for this chapter today, everybody. I hope that you have learned a lot. Remember to read, remember to practice. That's the only way you're going to always step by step become good at coding. Also, if you have questions, leave them in the comment section below. I'll make sure I reply as soon as I can. And if you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. As well, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if this video was useful for you or for somebody else, just share it with them. Hopefully, you will be helping somebody else. And remember that you can always ask Lixi. Bye everyone, and see you again in the next episode.